Catacombs. It is finally here and it contains rules for playing in a dungeon. But what exactly are the rules for playing in a dungeon? In this video I will go through the various rules for playing in a dungeon step by step, so you know exactly what you are getting into if you are buying this expansion. Hey tubers, my name is Peter Tuborg, this is Age of Miniatures, and today we are looking at Catacombs. More exactly, we are looking at the rules for playing in a dungeon. So I finally received my copy of Catacombs, which was slightly delayed. I am frantically digging through the box, getting my teeth sunk into the rules and painting up terrain, cutting out pieces, priming, board. So in the coming weeks I hope to have more content about Catacombs, but today I just wanted to go through the various rules that are extra in Catacombs, specifically the rules for playing in a dungeon. It was one of the things I was looking forward to the most and I'm quite excited about it. There are some parts of this expansion that I am not very fond of, but I will get to that in my review of the Catacombs set. I don't like to rush a review. I think people deserve a bit more thought going into those reviews. So making a review that comes out the day of the release, I'm not really that keen on it. Also, I am quite busy at the moment. So if I miss a video or it seems like they might be a bit rushed, it is because I am swarmed. At home, we are frantically getting ready for our first child. So things are slightly hectic, so I hope you will bear over with me for a while. At any rate, these are the rules for playing in a dungeon in the Catacombs release. You can find these rules on page 26 to page 38 of the Catacombs book. So, the first 3 steps are just like when playing a regular game. So you muster your warband, you make a priority roll, and then you pick battle groups. So that's just the plain regular rules. Now we come for what is different in playing in a dungeon. So first off, you play inside a dungeon instead of outside. You also have specific victory and twist cards. The map is of course quite different. A few rules are different. The terrain is quite special or different. The first different thing is now you need to pick a dungeon battlefield. There is only one dungeon battlefield to choose from in the Catacombs release, which is quite a shame. The dungeon battlefield contains lava and walls that you cannot walk through, and the different side of the map is the standard one from the starter set of Warcry. I'm slightly miffed about it because they actually have other dungeon battlefields out already, but that's a separate purchase. At any rate, the dungeon battlefield is quite cool and I really like the lava effect going on. So if you only have the Catacombs release, picking a dungeon battlefield is quite easy because you only have one to choose from. The next step is to generate the battle plan cards for the dungeon. This is quite different. One of the first things you will notice being different is that even though they are called battle plan cards, there are actually no cards in the box to do this with. So instead you can find them in the rules. The only thing you are missing is the terrain cards, but you have deployment cards, victory cards and twist cards in the book, so you have to roll for it. I just find it odd. Something weird is going on with Games Workshop and their cards. It seems like they're being printed maybe in China and something maybe happened with the production cycle. At any rate, it seems sort of a weird place to cut corners or cut on the cost of the box. I'm not a fan, but whatever. So first off, the person with priority rolls a die and randomly selects one of these. So first off, he rolls to see if it is from table A or B, and then he rolls a 6-sided die to determine which one it is. So what you can see here is that on all of the deployment cards, only 2 of the groups will be on the battlefield from the start, and you actually don't have a place where the last missing group will come in from. This is different in the dungeon battle, where each fighter can come on in from one of these gray squares, and the group does not have to set up in a big group. They can be set up separately. The person with priority also selects who will have the red or the blue markers. After that, the person with priority rolls for a victory card and a twist card. So the victory cards and the twist cards are different from a standard game, reflecting the special dungeon feel. The fighters not on the battlefield from the start will always enter in the start of turn 3 from the reserve through the sewers and various entrances you can find on the deployment card. This is quite a cool feature and I look forward to getting some games in with it. Now it's time to set up some dungeon terrain. First you set up the bridges, and they are always placed on the same spot depending on the dungeon you have picked. In this case, the starter set only have one setup for the specific board. After that, the person that has priority sets up a door on one of the door spots. There are 10 door spots in total, and there are 2 different kinds of doors. Doors that are open and doors that are closed. You will have to set up all of the doors on the battlefield. 4 of them are closed and 6 of them are open. After the person with priority has set up a door, the other guy sets up a door and then you shift. When you have no doors left, you're done. After that, it's time to set up some actual terrain. And this is where the dungeon stuff differs very much from the normal Warcry game. In the box you have 7 different dungeon features that you can set up. The player with priority sets up a dungeon feature and then the other guy sets one up until you have 4 features on the board. The features do some crazy stuff. You can only pick a dungeon feature once, except for the lever, which there are 2 of in the box. On page 30 you can find the rules for the dungeon features, and they all do something unique. These dungeon features can massively change the game up, so let's quickly go through them so you know what is what. The first one is the wall breach. Hello! Normally you cannot go through the walls in a dungeon, but this one you can walk through because of the tiny hole. This can be used if your opponent has sort of walled off with closed doors an area where you want to go in terms of the objectives. Can be pretty handy. Number 2 is the arm stash. This is amazing. So if you are within 3, you can add 1 die to your attack rolls, which is quite amazing. Next up we have 2 levers, and they're quite small and I can't find mine right now. You have to set them up within 1 inches of a sealed or closed door, and then if you have a fighter within 1 inches, he can open the door. For some reason you cannot close the door again, but whatever. Is some shattered pillars. What they do is that they are simply an obstacle and a low terrain as per the core rules. Number 6 of the dungeon terrain is a sewer. What this piece does is that when you get fighters in the start of round 3, one can come up with this if there's no fighter on top. I really like that piece because it's quite cinematic to jump up the sewers. It's quite Warcry, just... I completely forgot the cursed casket. Number 3. If you're in the move or a disengage action within 1, you need to roll a die. On a 1 you get 1 damage on that fighter. Apparently cursed caskets are bad. The last one here is the collapsed doorway. So you pick an open or closed door and then you can remove it, and then you set this up instead. The collapsed obstacle is dangerous terrain and an obstacle, so you can use it if your opponent has set up a sealed doorway that you don't want. You can just pop this guy down instead. So that's it for the various dungeon terrain. As you can maybe see, it seems like that the normal terrain will not be used in the Catacomb dungeon games. So even though this stuff is in the box, it is actually not used when playing a normal Catacombs game. On page 39 you get some rules for fighting a normal game with that terrain, but it just seems a bit strange to not have more dungeon terrain, or maybe more walls or something like that. It is slightly off in my opinion. So the last thing you need to do is resolve the battle plan card, so the victory and the twist, deploy your fighters and so on. Now the battle can begin. So here are the various extra rules that are different for a dungeon battle. First of all, no gargantuan fighters can get in the dungeon because they are just too big. In a dungeon there are walls. They are outlined with red on the map. You cannot see through walls, and they are obstacles so you can move through them. Also, you cannot climb them or put treasure on it or anything like that. So they are completely like walls. Doors are also obstacles, but just like in the core game, you can move through them even if your base is too big to move through the actual physical door. The sealed doors counts as walls until they are opened or in other ways removed. The lava is quite dangerous, and what really makes this dungeon battle tick for me. It is not a floor, so you cannot stand on it and you cannot put treasure or counters or anything on it. If at any point you fall into the pit, so the center of your base is on the pit, well, your fighter is taken out of action and out of the game. This is quite cinematic, and there are a few ways to push fighters into the pit. You can of course jump over the pit, and they are not that far, but if you do, you take impact damage from bubbling lava. Just like when standing on a platform, when you are hit with a crit, there is a chance that you fall down into the pit, and in this case, instead of taking some damage from falling, you just die. When you're standing on a bridge, there's also a chance that you can fall into the pit from a crit, and the bridges can sort of crumble on you. If you end a move or a disengage action on top of a bridge, you need to roll a 6-sided die. If you roll a 1 and it is a metal bridge, it is weakened. The wooden bridges start weakened, and if you end a move action on a weakened bridge and roll a 1, the bridge is removed and you fall into the lava. The last thing different in a dungeon battle is the extra universal abilities that you get. So these are abilities that all warbands get when they are fighting in a dungeon. You can find them all on page 31. The first one is a double called Lurk in Shadows. You can use the Lurk in Shadow if you are within 1 inch of the wall, and for the rest of the battle round, fighters that are more than 6 from him cannot see him. The next one is also a double called Bridge Door. If you're a ghost, you cannot use this ability. A fighter can use it if they are within 1 of a sealed door. You pick a melee weapon you have, and then you roll a number of die equal to the value of the ability. You take all of the dice that rolls a +2, and then you add your strength of the attack that you picked. If your total is 6 or more, you breach down the door and the sealed door is opened. The last ability you get is a triple ability called Push into Pit. And this is totally epic. I really love this. So you pick a fighter within half an inch of lava and within 1 inch of one of your fighters. You each roll a die, and then you add your toughness, which is quite unique. We haven't seen this before really. If you score more than your opponent, you push him into the pit and his fighter is taken out. Now this makes toughness quite a lot better than it used to be, and this will be exciting to see how it turns out. Last but not least, we get some abilities for the Corvus Cabal and the Ghost Guys. They are also found on page 31. So the Ghost Guys cannot breach the walls, but they can fly through it with this ability. It's a triple and it's called Float 2 Walls. So for the rest of the fighter's activation, they can move through walls and door, making the Ghost Guys pretty epic at dungeon battle. My beloved Corvus Cabal also gets 2 quite good abilities, maybe making up for the fact that some of their normal abilities are not great in a setting where there's actually really nothing to jump up on. If you know the Corvus Cabal, they really love to jump up on stuff and jump down again. The first double is called a wall run, or as I like to call it, the Matrix wall run. The Corvus Cabal fighter can use it if they are within 1 of a wall. For the rest of the move, as long as they are within 1 inch of a wall, they can move over fighters like they had fly, so they can sort of. The last ability and the last thing that is different in Catacombs dungeon battles is the Corvus Cabal quad ability. It is called Running Strike. You make a wall run just like the normal ability, wall run. Then you make a bonus move action, and then you make a bonus attack action. If you want to see more Catacombs stuff, I suggest subscribing and checking out my future videos about it. I will paint up some terrain and make a video about it. I will paint up the warbands, I will do a warband guide for each of them, I will do a lot of Catacomb stuff. Thanks for now, my YouTubers. See you next week.